So finally, my conclusions, which is the point where I do begin, I think, to interact significantly with your current concerns. My problem is this. Anarchist theorists are thin on the ground, as are anarchist commentators on mainstream culture. And I'm not aware of any anarchist or even libertarian writings on arts policy. But the obvious points to make are these. I'm going to make 6 points in conclusion. First, organisations of whatever kind must be autonomous. They must be run by their members without outside interference. That applies just as much to arts organisations as any other. Second, the arts administrators are state functionaries. They are cultural bureaucrats. Even if they are the means by which funds are distributed to the arts practitioners. Remember that definition of bureaucratisation I gave early on. Bureaucratisation is the process in which a group seeks to manage from the outside the activities of others. It's the others who should be managing their own affairs. Funds need to be delivered direct to the art form without mediation. I've been speaking to another friend who turns out to be the brother of Robert North, who was director of ballet here in Gothenburg, I'm told, and left Sweden very unhappily. But before that, he'd been director of the Scottish Ballet. I'm told that he insisted on the grant being paid direct by government to the Scottish Ballet without the intervention of the Arts Council. Third, for consumers, the audience must not be forgotten. The audience needs to be involved in the decision-making of arts organisations. I know there's a great concern about the audience, about the public, but it seems to be always in the way in which crudely in Britain we call bums on seats, talking about sheer numbers. But what they should be, the audience, the public need to be integrated into the process, not just seen as passive consumers. Fourth, this is somewhat more involved, what I call pluralism. What if the audience is tiny, an infinitesimal fraction of the overall population? This will be the case with high cultural art forms, and even more if they are modernist and avant-garde. An essential component of modernism has been its elitism, despising the middle class and popular culture, and making a virtue of its inaccessibility. All right, I accept this, and I rejoiced in it. But, and possibly I'm culturally schizophrenic here, but the democratic rights of the majority, the source of tax income, must be respected. Most anarchists are what political theorists would call deep pluralists, believing that individuals or groups must be free to follow their own interests and desires, provided that the ability of others thereby to do the same is not infringed. I have to use that word, infringed. That's the technical term from political philosophy. That the ability of others is not restricted. This is classic liberalism, as expounded by the 19th century British theorist John Stuart Mill, who was indeed what we should call a libertarian. He pushed liberalism so far. There needs to be a double-decker or duplex civilization, to use Herbert Reed's terms, to whatever factor. In this pluralist sense too, with minority enthusiasms coexisting with popular culture, or popular cultures. At this time I reflect a little bit on how popular really is mass culture. It's not time to do that. Fifth, everybody must be an artist. As William Morris said, I do not want art for a few, any more than I want education for a few, or freedom for a few. Everybody must be an artist. And the arts must be reintegrated into the total of personal and social activities, as Herbert Reed thought Eric Gilbert should do in his Catholic craft communities. Sixth, and possibly most radical of all, there's a natural lifespan for most organisations, and especially for creative projects. The innate conservatism of most human beings tends to resist this inevitability. But it's essential for organisations to be wound up, to be brought to an end when they serve their purpose, when their creativity is waning. I realise this can have uncomfortable consequences for the individuals, but I find myself time and again in organisations which run out of steam, which need to be wound up, and there's resistance to this even though they have fulfilled their objectives quite brilliantly. Trying to keep it alive, you can't. So those are my 6 points which I hope may stimulate discussion later on. Autonomous organisation, the need to dispense with the cultural bureaucrats, the importance of the audience, pluralism, everybody to be an artist, and the natural lifespan which most organisations have. They do not go on forever, they will die. Particularly people trying to keep them alive when they are dying. Finally, to try and wrap this up in a way which satisfies me, finally, anarchists have always stressed the centrality of the control of the means of production as much as the matter of the ownership of the means of production. That's what's distinguished them from other sorts of socialists. Does it matter if the means of production are owned by the state? If the workers are not in control or not running the means of production? This insight is of special relevance today when socialism has been removed from the political agenda for the foreseeable future, I think. Mainly owing to communist despotism, but also because of the inadequacies of public enterprise as implemented by social democracy, and overall a dislike of interference by the state. And it's certainly the case in Britain. It's been quite clearly the case in Britain. Is it also the case in Sweden with your distinctively different history and with your very successful welfare policies? The most important, as well as the most popular thing, is for individuals and groups to be able to take command of their everyday circumstances and determine the course of their lives, almost certainly collectively. To institute personal and communal autonomy as far as they're possible, and to exercise individual responsibility. This is equally true for the arts, where the relevant individuals and groups are not only the artists, but also their audiences.